Hey guys, welcome back to part 6 of the 10-part intro to Java programming tutorial. In the previous tutorial, we learned a little bit about loops, and in this tutorial, we're going to be learning about conditionals. So if you're enjoying this video, please go ahead and give it a like. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, leave them down below. If you haven't seen any of the previous tutorials, I'll leave a link above, but we're just going to go ahead and get right into it. So let's start by talking about what are conditionals. So suppose you're watching TV and you only want to change the channel if a commercial is on. So you are creating a condition here where you're saying, I will only change the channel if a commercial comes on because I don't want to spend the time watching it. So this is your way of saying, if commercial is on, then I will do something. I will change the channel. So in programming, we use these conditionals to run bits of code only if a condition is met. So the condition for your case will be that a commercial is on. The condition for the bit of code could be anything that we set it to. And if we remember loops, we created a condition before. We said we want to run this loop only 10 times, and that's a condition there. So if the condition is met, then it won't do anything else anymore. And we did the same thing for the while loop, where we ran our code only a specific amount of time. So in Java, we have things like conditionals, and I'll show you how we can use them in our code. So let's go ahead and write our very first if statement. So we're going to start by, let's just go ahead and zoom in here. So we're going to go ahead and just remove everything from here. Let's just get rid of all the stuff that we wrote previously, or just create a new hello world class. It's up to you. I'm just going to delete it. I'll keep these as subtract, multiply, divide methods since we'll use them later. And the first thing that we will do is we'll define a variable, and we'll call this one int a, and we'll make it 10. And then we will write a conditional. So the conditional is going to be if, and we always start our statements by this. We'll put whatever the keyword is, if or for, or while, whatever it is, and then we'll have our parentheses. And then after that, we want the bits of code to live within curly braces. So it's the same thing that we saw before in loops and in other things like methods and stuff like that. So if some condition is met, and we're going to define the condition in here, then we'll do everything that's within these curly braces. So the condition we'll say is if a is less than 10, then do this. Else, so if no condition is met here, do something else. So we're defining our variable a as 10. So is 10 less than 10? No, it's not. Right? So we should only run the code that's within this else. So what we'll say is, and this is just a very, very basic example, we'll say if it's less than 10, then I want to print out, and we'll just use our strings. We'll say I'm less than 10. And we'll just go ahead and copy that and paste that in the else and say, if else otherwise, then I'm probably not less than 10. And we'll just say I'm greater than or equal to 10. So we will run this code, and we kind of already know what should happen. We should see I'm greater than or equal to 10. But just essentially what we're doing here is creating a conditional statement. So let's run that. And I'm just going to use the IntelliJ run. So I'm going to run that by pressing this play button here. So just run this hello main. and let's see what we get. So essentially, IntelliJ is going to do the same thing that we do. It's going to run the compile, and then it's going to run the code. So here we see that I'm greater than or equal to 10. And this is great since we know it's working. So this is beneficial if we have things that we would only like to do in certain cases and not in others. So let's make this a little harder. And one thing that we'll do is we'll just create a loop out of it. So remember, we had for loops and while loops. So let's use a while loop for this one. So we'll start a at 0, and we'll say while, and again, parentheses, and then curly braces, while a is less than 20, we want to, and let's just copy and paste that into these parentheses. So I'm just copying, and then I'm going to put them within these parentheses. So your code should look something like this, and I'll just space it out so it's a little easier to read. One thing that we'll do is we will have our conditionals within this while. And then at the end, remember that we must do something with our variable. Otherwise, this is going to run forever. So it says here, condition A is less than 20 is always true. It is always true, which means that this program can actually die on us. So actually, you know what? Let's go ahead and run that so we can see what happens. So this is called an infinite loop, and you see this is just printing forever, and we don't want to do that. You can imagine that things like this could be very, very bad if you're doing some sort of processing on data and a bunch of stuff. Infinite loops are terrible. So let's make sure that we do something with our variable. And luckily, IntelliJ is smart enough to tell us like, hey, this is always going to be true. So we're going to do a plus plus, or again, remember, this is just a equals a plus 1. And now what we should see is I'm less than 10 should appear 10 times. And then I'm greater than or equal to 10 should also appear 10 times. So one of the cool things that we can do is we can also print out what number we're up to. So let's just add that to our string. So we'll say I'm less than 10, and then we'll just print out our number. So let's add a little plus here. So this is just going to do something to the string called concatenation. So it's just going to append the rest of the variables or anything else that we add after this plus. It'll append it to this string. So we'll say I'm less than 10, and then let's print our variable a. And our variable a should be increasing as we iterate through this while loop. And we will do the same thing for this bottom one, plus a. And we should see this start at 0, go all the way to 9. And then after 9, now we should start seeing this being printed. I'm greater than or equal to 10. And then we should start seeing 10 all the way until 19. And the reason why I say 19 is because once a is equal to 20, it no longer meets this condition. So this is a condition. This is also a condition. And once 20 is no longer less than 20 because it's equal to 20, then it'll exit out of this loop. And then we could print something down here just so we know that we're out of this loop. And we'll just make this one say something like, we are finally done. Lot of code here. So here we have in our main method, we defined a variable a, and we're creating a conditional for the while. And this condition is just while a is less than 20, then keep repeating. And down here, we're saying, let's just make sure that we increment a by 1. And then within the while, we're just saying, if a is less than 10, do this thing. If it's greater than 10, do this thing, or greater than or equal to 10, do this thing. And we'll see that output here. So we're going to go ahead and run this. So we could press this little play button, and we're going to run our main method. And let's just give it some time to run. And let's check out the output. So if we look at our output, we'll see I'm less than 10 and then A. And A is equal to 0. And we see that go all the way up to 9. So this went up to 9 because of the conditional that we set here in this if statement. And for anything that's outside of this, since this condition is not met, this else statement will handle the rest and say, all right, great. Well, I'm greater than or equal to 10. And we see that here, starting with 10 all the way until 19. Now no condition is met. Finally, we break out of the loop and Java says, awesome, I'm finally done. Great. So it'll print this out and we're done. And just a bit about this exit code. Exit code 0 means that it ran without any issues. And if you see a little 1 here, then that means that there was an issue. But these are also some other topics, but just know that since I like to explain everything that you see on the screen. So that takes care of conditionals, and hope that makes sense. If you guys have any questions, please go ahead and leave them down below. In the next video, we're going to talk a little bit about classes before we get into reading files and inputs. We're just going to do a very dedicated session on classes. We'll continue with calculator. We'll write a new class, and that is about it. If you guys have any comments, please leave them down below, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.